Ever wake up feeling weak than you did just a few years ago, even though you try to eat well, take your vitamins, and stay active? You're not alone, and the ants may have nothing to do with laziness or simply getting old. There's a hidden condition affecting millions of adults of 60 that quietly steals muscle, drains strength, and makes everyday tasks feel hard without most people even realizing what's happening. The good news is that once you understand the real cause, you can begin making simple changes that help protect your muscles before more strength disappears. Today, I'm going to reveal 5 common breakfast foods that could be speeding up muscle loss without you knowing it, along with 5 powerful alternatives that can help support strong muscles naturally. Stay with me until the end because one of these foods has been recommended for generations by traditional Chinese practitioners for supporting healthy aging, and it may completely change the way you think about breakfast. As a physician who has spent years caring for older adults dealing with muscle loss, I've seen firsthand how small daily habits can either strengthen the body or slowly weaken it. Many of my patients believed they were making healthy choices, yet they continued losing strength month after month. Once they replaced a few foods and adopted bad breakfast habits, many noticed meaningful improvements in their energy, balance, and confidence. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from, how old you are, and whether you've noticed any changes in your strength or balance. I enjoy reading your comments, and I always appreciate hearing your experiences. To understand why breakfast matters so much, let's first look at what happens inside your body while you sleep. Your muscles never simply rest overnight. They go through an ongoing cycle of repair and renewal. Throughout the day, every movement you make, whether it's walking, climbing stairs, gardening, or carrying groceries, creates tiny microscopic stress points within your muscle fibers. While that may sound concerning, it's actually a completely normal part of staying active. As you sleep, your body begins repairing those tiny areas of damage. Specialized repair cells travel to your muscles, rebuilding the fibers stronger than before so they prepared for the next day's activities. This repair process is one of the reasons quality sleep is so important as we age. But there's something equally important that many people overlook. Your muscles cannot rebuild themselves without the right nutrients. Think of it like repairing a damaged house. Even with the best construction works, nothing can be rebuilt without bricks, wood, and cement. Your muscles work exactly the same way. They need protein, vitamins, healthy fats, and key minerals immediately after your overnight fast. Breakfast supplies the raw materials your body uses to continue repairing muscle tissue throughout the morning. Unfortunately, this is where many older adults unknowingly make a mistake. Instead of providing their muscles with what they need most, they choose foods that interfere with muscle repair or provide very little nutritional support. Over time, those choices may contribute to gradual muscle loss, making it hard to maintain strength, independence, and mobility. Before I reveal the 5 breakfast foods that can best support muscle health, let's first look at 5 popular morning foods that may be working against you. The first one surprises almost everyone. White bread has become one of the most common breakfast foods around the world because it's inexpensive, convenient, and easy to prepare. But once it enters your digestive system, it breaks down very quickly into simple sugars. This causes blood sugar levels to rise rapidly, forcing your body to release a large amount of insulin to bring those levels back under control. While insulin plays an important role in regulating blood sugar, repeated spikes throughout the morning aren't ideal. After the initial increase, blood sugar can fall just as quickly, leaving you feeling tired, hungry, and low on energy only a short time late. Instead of providing steady fuel, white bread often creates an exhausting cycle of highs followed by crashes. For old adults already concerned about maintaining muscle, this pattern becomes even more important. When the body doesn't receive enough high-quality protein and essential nutrients after an overnight fast, muscle repair becomes less efficient. Instead of supporting recovery, breakfast turns into a missed opportunity to nourish the body's most important tissues. Research following thousands of older adults has found that dietary patterns centered around highly refined carbohydrates are often associated with poor muscle health compared with breakfasts containing high-quality protein and nutrient-dense foods. While muscle loss is influenced by many different facts, breakfast choices play a much big role than most people realize. I remember one patient in particular named Margaret. She was 62 years old when she first visited my clinic. Simple daily activities had become frustrating. Standing up from a chair required pushing with both hands. Carrying grocery bags from the car felt exhausting, and climbing stairs had become something she dreaded. She had also experienced several falls within a short period, leaving both her and her family worried about her future independence. When we carefully reviewed her daily routine, one habit immediately stood out. Every single morning before leaving for work, she toasted 2 slices of white bread, spread butter on top, and called it breakfast. It was quick, familiar, and convenient. Like many people, she believed that because she wasn't eating pastries or fast food, she was making a reasonable choice. Instead of giving her muscles the nutrients they desperately needed after an overnight fast, that breakfast was providing mostly rapidly digested carbohydrates with very little high-quality protein. We gradually replaced that routine with more protein-rich breakfast foods and several of muscle-supporting options that I'll explain later in this video. Within just a few weeks, Margaret began noticing encouraging changes. She reported having more consistent energy throughout the day. Climbing stairs became easy, and she no longer needed to rely on the handrail every single time. Most importantly, she felt strong, steady, and far more confident performing the everyday activities she once feared. That experience reminded both of us how powerful small nutritional changes can become when repeated every single morning. But white bread isn't the only breakfast habit that deserves a close look. The next one is something millions of people reach for within minutes of waking up, believing it's helping them start the day. In reality, depending on how it's consumed, it may be doing more harm than good for aging muscles. The next breakfast habit catches many people by surprise because it's something millions of adults consider harmless or even healthy. For countless seniors, the day doesn't officially begin until they've had their first cup of coffee. That familiar aroma feels comforting. The warm drink provides an instant boost, and many believe it's exactly what they need to wake up. But if you have wondered what happens when coffee is the very first thing to enter your body after an entire night without food, after several hours of fasting while you sleep, your body naturally wakes up in a state where it needs nutrients. Your muscles have spent the night repairing themselves, your liver has been regulating blood sugar, and your energy reserves are lower than they were the evening before. When coffee is consumed on an empty stomach, the caffeine quickly stimulates your nervous system, causing your body to release cortisol, often referred to as the body's primary stress hormone. Cortisol itself isn't harmful. In fact, it plays an essential role in helping you wake up and stay alert. The problem rises when caffeine causes cortisol to rise before your body receives the nutrients it has been waiting for all night. Instead of immediately supplying your muscles with protein and other building blocks, you're essentially asking your body to become more alert without giving it the fuel it needs to function efficiently. For older adults who are already experiencing gradual muscle loss, this habit can become particularly important. Muscle tissue naturally becomes more difficult to maintain as we age, making proper nutrition early in the day even more valuable. Starting the morning with food before relying solely on caffeine may best support the body's normal recovery process. Several studies involving older adults have examined the relationship between breakfast habits and muscle maintenance. While coffee itself isn't necessarily the problem, consistently replacing breakfast with coffee or delaying food for several hours may reduce opportunities to provide muscles with the nutrients required after the overnight fast. Over months and years, those missed opportunities can gradually add up. One patient I'll never forget was James, a hard-working security guard who visited me shortly after his 62nd birthday. James wasn't retired. In fact, he worked harder than most people half his age. To support his family, he balanced 2 demanding jobs. He spent nights working security at a warehouse before sleeping only a few hours, then headed straight to a second daytime position. His schedule left almost no room for prop meals. Instead, he depended almost entirely on coffee to stay awake. Every morning he would drink cup after cup before eating anything, believing it was the only way he could survive his exhausting routine. Some days he consumed 6 or even 8 cups before his first real meal. At first, he believed the coffee was helping him, but gradually, his body began telling a different story. His arms felt weak than they used to. Lifting equipment became increasingly difficult. Walking long distances left him more tired than expected, and despite drinking more caffeine than ever, he constantly felt exhausted. His supervisor even questioned what he was still capable of handling the physical demands of the job. That conversation frightened James more than anything else, because he depended on his income to support his family. When we reviewed his lifestyle together, it became clear that his morning routine needed to change. Rather than beginning every day with multiple cups of coffee on an empty stomach, we focused first on giving his body real nourishment. We introduced a protein-rich breakfast, encouraged him to eat shortly after waking, and gradually adjusted when he drank coffee instead of eliminating it completely. The changes were dramatic overnight, but of the following weeks he noticed steady improvements. His energy became more stable throughout the day instead of rising and crashing repeatedly. He found himself relying on less caffeine because his meals were providing lasting fuel. Tasks that once seemed exhausting became manageable again, and his confidence slowly returned. Several months later, James told me something that made all the effort worthwhile. He had enough energy to coach his grandson's little league baseball team after work, something he never imagined possible during the months when coffee had become his breakfast. That simple adjustment didn't magically erase every challenge in his life, but it helped restore strength he thought he had permanently lost. Stories like James remind us that healthy aging often isn't about complicated solutions. It's about giving your body what it actually needs at the right time. Now let's move on to a nug breakfast food that surprises nearly everyone because it's often promoted as an excellent source of protein. Many people assume that as long as a breakfast contains protein, it's automatically helping build muscle. Unfortunately, that's not always true. The next item is processed meat. Foods such as bacon, breakfast sausage, deli ham, and similar products that appear on millions of breakfast plates every morning. At first glance, these foods seem like an obvious choice. They're rich in protein, convenient to prepare, and have been part of traditional breakfasts for generations. Many seniors grew up believing that bacon and sausage were among the best ways to start the day because protein supports strength. While protein is certainly important, the type of protein you choose matters just as much. Processed meats undergo preservation methods that often involve added sodium, nitrates, nitrites, and other ingredients designed to improve flavor and extend shelf life. Regular consumption of these foods has been linked in numerous studies to increased inflammation and a high risk of several chronic health conditions. Inflammation doesn't always produce obvious symptoms. Sometimes it develops quietly over many years. For aging muscles, persistent inflammation may interfere with the body's normal ability to recover after daily activity. Instead of supporting healthy repair, the body spends more time responding to inflammatory stress. Research who followed large groups of older adults found that dietary patterns high in processed meats were frequently associated with poor physical performance and reduced muscle quality compared with diets emphasizing lean, minimally processed protein sources. One patient who taught me this lesson was Sarah, a retired school teacher in her late 60s. When she first arrived at my office, she was deeply concerned about how weak she had become. Carrying grocery bags required several trips. Getting out of the bathtub had become difficult, and even holding a pen long enough to write a letter caused noticeable shaking in her hands. As we discussed her daily routine, she proudly described her breakfast. Every morning for more than a decade, she prepared bacon and breakfast sausage because her late husband had always reminded her that protein was essential for staying strong. She had followed that routine faithfully, convinced she was doing exactly what her body needed. What Sarah didn't realize was that while she was getting protein, she was also consuming processed foods every single morning without giving her muscles the broad nutritional support they truly needed. That realization became the starting point for a healthy breakfast routine that would eventually transform far more than just her mornings. Sarah had spent years believing she was making the right decision. Every morning she faithfully prepared bacon and breakfast sausage because, in her mind, a protein-rich breakfast was exactly what an aging body needed. She now questioned the habit because it had become part of her daily routine, and after following it for more than a decade, it simply felt normal. Like many older adults, she assumed that if a food contained protein, it had to be helping her muscles. During our conversation, we looked beyond the protein content alone. I explained that although processed meats do contain protein, they also contain large amounts of sodium, preservatives, and other compounds that may contribute to chronic inflammation when eaten frequently. For someone already struggling with age-related muscle decline, relying on these foods every single morning may not provide the best nutritional support for long-term strength and mobility. Rather than making drastic changes overnight, we focused on replacing processed meats with fresh, high-quality protein sources while also improving the rest of her breakfast. She embraced the plan with remarkable dedication. When I unexpectedly saw Sarah several months later at a neighborhood grocery store, I almost didn't recognize her. Instead of struggling with heavy shopping bags, she was carrying them comfortably with both hands. She walked with confidence, her posture had improved, and there was a noticeable energy in the way she moved. As we talked, she smiled and shared everything that had changed. She no longer needed frequent breaks while doing household chores. She had started volunteering at community events again, something she had stopped because she simply didn't have the strength or stamina before. She even told me she had enrolled in ballroom dancing classes, an activity she once believed she'd never be physically capable of enjoying again. Of course, it wasn't just one food that made the difference. It was the combination of replacing highly processed breakfast choices with more nutritious foods while staying active and consistent with healthy habits. Those small daily improvements gradually added up, allowing her to regain confidence in her body. Now let's move to a nut breakfast that surprises almost everyone because it has been promoted for decades as one of the healthiest meals you can possibly eat. Many health magazines recommend it. Nutrition experts often include it in meal plans. Docs have suggested it for heart health, and countless seniors proudly eat it every single morning believing they're making the perfect choice. I'm talking about oatmeal served with skim milk. Before you misunderstand me, oatmeal itself can absolutely be part of a healthy diet. It's an excellent source of fiber and offers many nutritional benefits. The issue isn't necessarily the oats themselves. Instead, it's how this breakfast is commonly prepared and what important nutrients may be missing from the meal. For years, people were encouraged to avoid dietary fat when if possible. Grocery stores became filled with fat-free products, reduced-fat dairy, and low-fat alternatives marketed as healthier options. Many adults replaced whole milk with skim milk believing they were protecting both their hearts and their waistlines. But here's something many people never considered. Certain vitamins, including vitamins A, D, E, and K, are fat-soluble. That means your body absorbs them much more effectively when healthy fats are present. When breakfast contains little or no fat, it may not provide the same nutritional advantages as a more balanced meal that includes healthy sources of fat alongside protein and fiber. For aging muscles, nutrients like vitamin D are particularly important because they play an important role in maintaining normal muscle function. Simply removing fat from every meal doesn't automatically make the meal healthy. Research studying old adults have observed that overall dietary quality, including adequate protein, healthy fats, vitamins, and minerals, appears far more important for maintaining muscle than simply reducing fat intake. A balanced breakfast often supports better nutrition than one focused exclusively on minimizing calories or fat. I remember exactly when this lesson became especially clear. It was during my daughter's graduation ceremony. Families filled the outdoor venue, children were running across the grass, and everyone was celebrating together. As I looked across the crowd, I noticed a familiar face. It was Dorothy, one of my form patients. 2 years early, Dorothy had visited my office because she was becoming increasingly worried about her physical strength. Picking up her young granddaughter had become difficult. Opening heavy doors required both hands. Even simple tasks like carrying laundry upstairs or lifting shopping bags were becoming exhausting. What puzzled her was that she believed she was following every nutritional recommendation she'd ever received. Every single morning for nearly 15 years, Dorothy prepared a carefully measured bowl of steel-cut oats with skim milk and a sliced banana. She rarely missed a day. Her cardiologist had encouraged a heart-healthy, low-fat breakfast years early, and she remained committed to following that advice exactly. She couldn't understand why she felt weak, despite eating what she believed was one of the healthiest breakfasts possible. After reviewing her complete diet rather than focusing on just one meal, we discussed several adjustments. Instead of eliminating healthy foods like oats, we built a more balanced breakfast around them by increasing protein, adding healthy fats, and improving overall nutrient intake. Small changes often produce much better long-term results than extreme diets. Standing at that graduation ceremony, I watched Dorothy laughing as she chased her granddaughter across the playground. She effortlessly picked the little girl up into her arms, spun her round, and continued playing without appearing tired. When she noticed me, she walked over with a huge smile. She told me she had returned to working part-time as a personal shop, a job that required walking long distances and carrying bags throughout the day. Instead of leaving work exhausted, she now had enough energy to enjoy evenings with her family. Most importantly, she no longer viewed growing old as something that automatically meant becoming weaker every year. Her story serves as an important reminder that healthy eating isn't simply about choosing foods labeled low-fat or heart-healthy. True nutrition involves providing your body with the complete range of nutrients it needs to function at its best. Now let's move on to the fifth and final breakfast food that many seniors have sitting in their kitchen cabinets right now. In fact, there's a good chance it's already in your pantry. It's quick. It's convenient. It's heavily advertised. Many boxes proudly display labels claiming they fortified with vitamins, support heart health, or contribute to strong bones. Because of those marketing messages, millions of old adults assume refined breakfast cereals are one of the healthiest ways to begin the day. Unfortunately, there's much more to the story than what's printed on the front of the package, and understanding that difference could completely change the way you think about your morning routine.